speech evaluator. He's not the only evaluator.
Oh, that's true.
Today we have a very special treat. Simon Reedsma will be giving his second speech. Today he'll be speaking on the topic of company forms. He's chosen this in an effort to help familiarize himself with the content for an upcoming work presentation. And since we come to Toastmasters with the aim to improve our work and our personal communications, I think it's excellent to see that this effort of the speech is being directed toward a real-world application. Again, he's performing Company Communicator number 2 called Organize Your Speech. His speech title is Lessons Learned. The objectives for the second Company Communicator speech are to perform the speech where the ideas flow in an orderly manner. It should include a clear introduction, conclusion, and have smooth transitions between items, and it needs to have a clear message with the details directly supporting it in an organized manner. Simon's personal goals are to use organization better to convey the message as per the goals of the speech, also to make a mundane topic interesting, to maintain better eye contact, to try to refrain from referring to his notes, and to limit vocal crutches, especially and, which is tackling today. I'll have the timer please set for 5 to 7 minutes. And with that, please welcome Simon Reedsma with Lessons Learned.
Imagine yourself as a professional chocolatier. You open up a small shop on Mackinac Island, and your first order of business is to disperse samples throughout the island. You don't have very many funds though, so you had to choose that instead of posting signage for your shop. So you put all these samples out kind of randomly, they're not even by your shop. And people walk by and try your samples. And at first they like them, and they match up with your original product. But they can't find your shop, so they just wander around aimlessly and never find where they can actually buy your chocolate. And eventually, your samples get really stale because they just sit out there. And you're so busy in the shop that you don't realize it, and nobody's there to tell you what's going on because they can't find your shop. Eventually, you have to pack up your bags and post the first sign on your shop, a permanently closed sign. And you move down to southern Michigan and get a job at Summers Energy. Your manager comes to you on the first day and gives you your first project. And it is working with the company forms, specifically in the gas distribution engineering manual, which is being redesigned. Your job is to analyze whether the forms are accessible and how you can make them more user-friendly for people to find. Your mission is to use your experiences from the island and the problems that you encountered and the solution to come up with a solution for these company forms. Problem number 1 that you encountered on the island was all the time you hear people say that they'd say, "There's so much fudge around here. I like fudge, but I could really use some good old-fashioned milk chocolate." But they can never find your shop because you didn't have signs. So your first question, considering the forms, is, are people able to find the forms? And there's mixed results with that. I have 3 examples up here of standards within the manual that refer to forms. And the first one does not include a sample form, but it does have text that says, for the form, search reinforcing cable search in your iConnect search library. So it's using an iConnect search to find the original maintainable form. The second example I have is 2-580, which talks about, it does have an original form. And at the bottom there's a little note that says, for the maintained form, go to iConnect, which is actually referring to the iConnect company forms library. The third example I have is a sample form with no mention of iConnect or where the maintained version is. So it leaves users to have to decide, should I print this off and use this form? Should I search on iConnect? Or should I go to the forms library? And you come to the conclusion that while some places it's clearly spelled out, it is confusing for users to know where to find the maintained version of the form. This brings you to your second problem. Problem 2 is that sweet tooths all around the island, they tried your samples and they all gave a resounding ew after weeks of them sitting there because your samples got stale and they didn't match up with the product you were working so hard to produce every day. So your next question concerning the forms is, do these sample forms align with the maintained version of the forms? And this also has mixed results. Some of them are maintained equally, so the screenshots from the maintained forms are included in the manuals with the right revision dates. Then we come into problems with 2-160, which has a revision date of 2015, but in the forms library, 2016. So there's small changes here and there, which maybe isn't that big of a deal, but then we get to 6-170, where the revision date is 1997, and the current version is 2016. And so however many revisions have taken place in between there all show up as differences in the maintained version and in the version in the manuals. Now going back to our first problem, if users don't know whether they're supposed to print, search, or go to the forms library, and they encounter a manual that's 20 years old and has a bunch of discrepancies, then there's a compliance risk there because they might not be using the correct version of the form. So considering all these things, you start to analyze what your solution was on the island, and that solution was to give up, pack up your bags, and start something new. But you just started at Consumers, and you kind of want to see this project through and see if you can do better. So your solution that you propose to your manager is to eliminate sample forms, move all forms to the company forms library, so that there's one place, the company forms library, where you can include a line of reference in the manuals that refers users to the company forms library without a sample form. This would remove the discrepancy between revisions because users would only have access to the most current maintained version. And it also would remove the confusion about where the form is located because they would all be moved to the company forms library. So these questions are all removed as well. And users know that they can refer all the time to the company forms library. It turns out that eliminating sample forms and moving all forms to the company forms library quite possibly is the best solution for owners, users, and developers alike. It streamlines the form attaining process, it reduces inconsistency, and limits compliance concerns. And as it turns out, you could have saved yourself a lot of trouble on the island if you would have used your money to buy signs instead of throwing stale samples at people. Thank you.